When I was growing up, I remember this one time that my sister said, "Don't be a Nimrod." And when she got angry with me. And, in Western culture, a Nimrod is someone that is foolish or inept. But in Hebrew, it actually meant skillful hunter or rebel. And as we take a look at chapter 10, we find a lot of genealogy that can get kind of boring, which if you study it out, though, can help us understand the spread of humankind to different areas of the earth. It's not real exciting reading, but in verse 8, we read about this guy named Nimrod. So it says, Cush became the father of Nimrod. He was the first to be a mighty man of the earth. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord. Therefore it is said, like Nimrod, a mighty hunter before the Lord. It goes on to say that he also established the kingdoms, including one important one that we'll talk about a little bit later called Babel. And so it kind of all starts to fall in line as we get to that story. But the context actually shows that if you study it out in English, it seems like he's just a hunter. But if you study it out, he's actually a mighty hunter, but not of animals, but of men. And so the idea is that Nimrod was a rebel against God and was a hunter of man, not animals. So the Bible commentator by the name of Ginsburg quotes a Jewish legend that says, the great success that attended all of Nimrod's undertakings produced a sinister effect. Men no longer trusted in God, but rather in their own prowess and ability, an attitude to which Nimrod tried to convert the whole world. So one of the things that Nimrod was trying to do was saying, you don't need God. We can do it on our own. I do all these things. I can do this on my own. So Nimrod isn't mentioned a whole lot in the Bible as an example of what to be, but he is mentioned here, and we kind of see as he's the one that establishes Babel later on, that he's a rebellious spirit against God, and that's what a rebellious spirit can look like. Although the Bible doesn't mention Nimrod much more than just a few genealogies here and there, but many architectural, archaeological texts and historians believe that Nimrod could in fact be the great king known as Gilgamesh, who was a huge king of ancient times. And many accounts and stories found throughout historical texts and archaeological finds allude to this great king that pretty much lines up with the timeline of Nimrod and his great kingdoms as the Bible describes. So we aren't for certain that he's Gilgamesh, but it is plausible. That being said, the thing that stands out in this about Nimrod is that he's the one that establishes Babel. And that is a place we know where a great rebellion against God, go figure, they worked hard and made themselves a great tower to be like God. And we'll read more about that in chapter 11 and kind of get into that. But knowing that this Nimrod, this rebel against God, was the one that establishes that kingdom already says to me, this is not a good guy. So Nimrod was the descendant of Ham and Canaan, which we talked about last time, who had earlier been cursed by Noah, right? And he said, your descendants will be cursed. So it's not a surprise that Nimrod is a rebel against God. We talked about the fact that Noah had already seen the evil in Ham and Canaan's heart, and it looks like it's continued. Nimrod, like his forefathers, relied on his own skills and works of his flesh to make himself great. And we'll find out that God has to crush the Tower of Babel. Actually, he doesn't crush the tower, but he confuses their language. But we'll get into that in chapter 11. But I think it's notable to reiterate how important it is we serve God every day and find our strength in him, so we are not noted in genealogies to come as the rebel that has to be stopped, like Nimrod did. So my advice today as we close is don't be a Nimrod, both in the Western culture definition and in the Hebrew.